That was definitely a Jacob improv, by the way.
We'll say, but we don't have any money. And he says, but find the money.
Manga, always manga.
Here's the thing I will say about Karoo.
They're going to kill me for this. I've never actually watched the anime.
The big elephant in the room, how long do you plan to keep the show going? Once thought impossible, Netflix and Tomorrow Studios actually pulled off a live-action version of One Piece. Fans were pleasantly surprised with the first season, myself included. The follow-up was received even better, and they're currently shooting a third season. Following the second season premiere, I chatted with executive producer and Tomorrow Studios president Becky Clements, co-showrunner Joe Trace, and writer Ian Stokes, who recently got promoted to co-showrunner for season 3. We learned what it was like to work with Oda, why they included some surprise characters into the show, and how long they actually see the show going. But first, I was curious to know how they consumed One Piece. Manga or anime?
Manga, always manga, never anime, for a number of reasons. It's already hard to go manga to live action, and it's to add that interim piece where it's manga to anime to live action felt like we would be losing some of the beauty and purity of the manga. Because anime is a moving image, it may have more of an effect on our live action shows. And when we were in casting, we would ask representatives and actors to only read the manga if they didn't know it. But that was impossible to do. I mean, many actors who came in were like, you could tell when they were sort of anime first because they were often just performing a version of the anime character.
They're going to kill me for this. I've never actually watched the anime.
Me neither. I'm a manga only guy. Don't worry. I don't have that kind of time.
No, I mean, when I saw the hours on it, but we don't have the rights to the anime. We have the rights to the manga. I didn't want to watch anything that would put something in my head about how this show could be performed or done.
I see a lot of people talk about our show as an anime adaptation. In fact, we're adapting the manga. And so, I love watching the anime, but on one hand, you got to kind of put that aside and say, if you're just looking at the anime, you're doing an adaptation of an adaptation. Whereas, the manga is the original source material. That's the Bible. So, sometimes the anime does things differently. Obviously, the anime has stories that are not canonically in the manga, so that, sometimes we find fun ways to nod to. But, by and large, we're adapting the manga. We're treating it as if this is something that's being adapted, just right from the page of the screen for the first time.
So even though we all call it a live-action anime, the team actually sees it as an adaptation of the original source material, the manga, which is why they're working so closely with the author and mangaka of One Piece, Eiichiro Oda.
So Oda has been very involved. He reads outlines, he reads scripts, he watches cuts, he looks at casting, we send him concept art. I mean, he is as involved as producers on all of our live-action shows.
Again, everything we do is always approved by Oda-san himself. Nothing is a surprise. And so sometimes he will say, no, put that back in. And we'll say, but we don't have any money. And he says, but find the money. And then we find the money. And, we might push back on something if we need to, but the egg's always on my face because he's always right. Nah, I mean, like every time we look at it first, I'll be like, oh, man. And then I read it again and I'm like, no, he's right. That's better. I've been getting notes on scripts and outlines since I started writing television. But the care and thought that he puts into every note he gives us on our written material is so amazing and so rewarding.
All our scripts go to Oda for notes. And, sometimes you get a script back and there's, I think last year Oda discovered how to type in Final Draft, because sometimes they'll just be like a typed page in format. I'm like, wait, we didn't write that page. Well, Oda did. He's very involved. And obviously that's an incredibly welcome role for him to play, because this is his world. He created these characters that people around the world have cared about for decades. So we would be foolish not to treasure that wisdom, not to listen to his feedback. So, I think while he has veto power, it's also a case of like, well, why would we ever want to do something that wasn't what he intended? Probably the last thing that was done for season 2 was finessing the cloud over the drum that looks like a sakura blossom tree, and we had these versions of it that were very realistic, where it's like, well, if you're shooting spotlights into a cloud and there's a mountain, it would look like that. He said, look, this doesn't have to be realism. This can be poetry. And it felt like, oh, of course, like what you want is the emotion from the moment. So, even though we're live action and we're saying we're grounding things, we're adding texture, we're making things feel real, at the end of the day, the story moves because it's poetry. There's something beautiful and moving in it, and we should be leaning into, those cinematic qualities and not letting sort of realism be the thing that keeps you from achieving wonder.
One Piece is now over 1,100 chapters long. If you wanted to watch the anime, it would take you over 450 hours to catch up. The Netflix series is taking things at a quicker pace, sure, but it would still take them at least a decade to catch up. The big elephant in the room for fans is how long do you plan to keep the show going, right? Like, I think as of now, some estimates put the story that you're like maybe 10% through right now. So are you prepared for a 20 season thing or what's what?
No, we are not prepared for 20, because if I'm Zooming with you in 20 years, something's wrong. We have multiple years beyond this. We have plans, and it depends on who you talk to. I mean, I am someone who I just love it so much, so I'm going to want to do 10, 12, 15, 20. I think there are certain parts of it that just from a live action construction, there are certain moments where it makes sense to get to them. Others, it doesn't make quite so much sense, but you want to see that story. So we have many years ahead.
Like in the first season, I saw an interview from you that said maybe 16 seasons was kind of, that's still
well, that is again me being the most aggressive and most optimistic. I mean, I think we've almost feel like we've already broken through season 8, and then we could figure out from there. Yeah.
Apparently Oda has kind of an arc goal that he wants to get to with the live action. Do you know what it is?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Is it the same goal for you? Are you aligned, or are you trying to go farther?
I think he is more realistic than me. Yes. He and I are aligned in we have 8 to 10. The 16 is me just being, wanting to do it all. So
I've seen people say, oh, he says where he wants it to get to. It's more like, here's a story he wants to make sure we tell in live action. And I think we all hope, continuing beyond that, but look like they're, we're building these characters, we're building this world. I think none of us want to say goodbye before we've had a chance to really, continue paying off the things we set up.
But let's not look too far ahead. Some of the most talked about aspects to the second season were all the changes made to the original story. And the most notable of these changes were including characters like Bartolomeo, Brook, and Sabo much earlier into the story than the original manga did. Here's Joe explaining their approach to adding future characters into the show.
I think one thing we've done in the live action is sometimes things get revealed sooner. In anime or in a drawing, it's easy to sort of hide something. Oda draws his silhouettes of characters. It's really hard to film a silhouette, because even if you film a silhouette, you're casting an actor, you're putting a costume on them. You're still making choices. So sometimes it's about that. And sometimes it is about just having the wealth of knowledge of saying, we know where the story goes, that in a way that maybe when Oda first wrote the story, he didn't know. So we can actually start planting seeds sooner, or give this dimension to a character who at this point in the manga hadn't yet accrued that dimension.
I was at the LA premiere, and you would have thought a bomb dropped when Bartolomeo appeared on screen for the first time. I had no idea the fans were going to respond so positively. The story had been broken without Bartolomeo, and I remembered thinking, oh, Logtown feels empty. Even with the addition of Smoker and Tashigi in that episode, which are more canon, it was like, I'm missing in my last half someone for Luffy to talk to. My memory is that Randy Troy, our in-house One Piece encyclopedia, had pitched bringing Barto up in a cameo, and instantly I recognized the opportunity we had to tell a real Barto story. When we go to a new place, it's the new characters we meet, it's the new world, it's that exploration of finding friends, and overall the theme of Luffy leaves a place and he's changed it. We didn't have that element in one until we introduced Bartolomeo.
Sabo and Brook, as far as the actors go, like, are they the same actors that you intend to bring back for that far?
Yes. Always.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it, there's a lot of ifs there, but that would be the hope.
What stood out to you about like Marshall's audition for Brook?
I mean, so we write fake scenes. You know, I think the scene that like we wrote the Brook Yorkie audition scene was like sort of like two like down and out musicians like counting their like, you know, what they earned from a gig at the end of the day. It was like nothing about Brook at all, and the scene ended with the character singing to another character to cheer them up. And so it's like we wanted someone who could really just like act the hell out of his character scene, who could sing beautifully, and also because, you know, Brook is pretty tall, so Marshall, a lot of photos of him standing next to other people, so we could just see, you know, as we were in the US and he was here in Cape Town, so we could just see just how tall he is. He's very tall.
So no yo-ho-hos in the audition.
No, he is. But, you know, that you know, then obviously once, you know, he knew he was playing, and so, you know, and that was definitely, you know, it was like, well, are we going to show Brook or not? It felt, you know, it felt weirder to not show him and to not have him be a part of that flashback because of how important he is and his music is to Laboon. It felt like if we were telling Laboon's story and just seeing the Mermaid Pirates in silhouette or hiding them, it would feel like you weren't getting that full picture of that story. And obviously in season 1, you know, you hear Binks Brew playing when in a scene between Luffy and Shanks. So we already have established in season 1 that this is a song that Luffy would have heard in his time with Shanks. Those seeds were planted. The payoff was here when he sings a song that means something to him and to Laboon, both thinking about somebody who's a pirate who left them behind. For Laboon, it's the Rumba Pirates, it's Brook and Calco Yorkie, and for Luffy, it's Shanks, and that feeling of like, here's this person who I wanted to join him, and he said, stay here.
Who is the actor that's playing Sabo? Is it just a stand-in right now? Or
It is just a stand-in right now, yeah. It was the surprise of, oh my God, Sabo, you know, at that last stepping through the door.
Manga and anime fans might have forgotten, but Miss All Sunday's introduction in the manga was also much later than it was in the show. Here's Ian talking about why they made her fight scene the opening to season 2.
You got to start with a bang, or we're going to lose people. You know, we were blessed enough they brought us back almost immediately after we wrapped season 1 to start writing season 2, which is great, except we have no idea what the reaction to season 1 is. We don't know what people like, what people don't like. And so I guess my gamble was, I'm willing to bet people are going to like the action on this show. So we better start with a big action scene. Also, kind of, if we're going to say the season is upping the danger, upping the stakes, let's see our villains in action. There's a scene like this later in Alabasta that was kind of the inspiration for Miss All Sunday using her powers this way. But we also just, both Matt Owens and I had come from Marvel Netflix shows where, you know, the pinnacle was a good hallway fight. And we were like, I've never seen one of those where hands are bursting out all over the place and breaking necks. But I think it really sets up the story well. It brings the intrigue. It got a huge reaction to the premiere. People were very excited about it. And Lyra is fantastic. I can't wait for you guys to see even more of her.
With the main crew's introductions out of the way, the writers were not only able to delve deeper into their character arcs, but also to write to their actors' voices as well. But that's not to say a little ad-libbing wouldn't happen every now and then. Fans immediately suspected that this line from Jacob Romero was unscripted based on Taz Skylar's reaction to it.
Curse you, Sanji! Curse you! And your charm, your chiseled jawline, your ocean eyes. We need someone who can talk some sense into the... Zoro!
Oh yeah, that was definitely a Jacob improv, by the way. That was all Jacob. I wish we could have written a line that good. I mean, we could have a whole other show of just Jacob riffing as Usopp.
I'll say for any of these guys, Kiki, Jacob, all of them will come by and be like, can I say this? And we'll just be like, yeah, go for it. It's the rule of a comedy room. If it makes you laugh on the day, we know it'll make you laugh on TV. A big thing that's different about season 2 versus season 1 is season 1, we had no idea who these actors were. We had all 8 scripts written, then we go out and cast. Writing the show now is so much more fulfilling and fun. You know, writing a line like, oh, Kiki will kill this. Oh, Jacob's gonna love that. Oh, this is gonna be great for Emily, Taz, Kenyu, all of them. You know, it's so much fun to write in their voices. And yeah, there's probably a little bit of the actors creeping into the characters as well, but I think it goes 2 ways also.
Fans of the source material were also surprised to see some later Sanji lore introduced to the story early as well. His whole childhood history with his mother doesn't get introduced in the manga until hundreds of chapters later. Here's Joe on why they brought this lore early into the show.
We talked about the season as sort of every island is focused on a particular Straw Hat. So for Luffy, it's Logtown because here's where Gold Roger's legend was born, and he's being confronted with, you know, Buggy saying, what does it mean to be king of the pirates? For Nami, it's Twin Capes and Laboon because it's about navigation and how that doesn't work the same way in the Grand Line. For Zoro, it's Whiskey Peak, where his defeat from Mihawk is really sort of fueling his desire to prove himself. For Usopp, it's Little Garden, because this is his chance to sort of see what a brave warrior the sea is really like in the Giants. So that left sort of Sanji, for Drum. And so it just seems like, how do we really step up Sanji? Him almost losing Nami in a way that he lost his mother would just be beneath his desire to like climb a freaking mountain to get her help. We had an opportunity for him to actually share that with her. He cares for her in a way that isn't just about always trying to flirt with her. He actually cares about her in a deep way because she's part of his crew, his Nakama, his family, in the same way that his mother was. So in early versions, we were gonna have flashbacks. We're like, well, we obviously had a young Sanji we loved in season 1. Should this be a flashback sequence? Should we see, Sanji bringing this food to his mom? And at a certain point, it just felt like Taz is an incredible actor. If we just gave him a monologue and put the camera on him and let him tell the story, he can do that, in a more direct, honest, beautiful way than all the flashbacks in the world could.
Every meal I make him for her.
Zoro's fight against 100 Baroque Works agents was portrayed to even greater detail than the anime or the manga. He actually defeats 100 enemies on screen. You can go ahead and count them all. But were there really 100 stunt people?
No, I mean, look, we always knew from script stage on that it was going to be 100, and that was one of the first things we talked to our stunt team about when they came on board the new season, was like, look, like Zoro's going to fight 100 guys, so we need 100 guys, but we didn't have 100 stunties. Some of those stunties would get killed by Zoro, go put on a different costume, a different wig, and go get killed again. So I think there's at least one stuntie who probably gets killed by Zoro 3 different times, playing 3 different Baroque agents.
In the lead up to season 2, Luffy actor Inaki Godoy revealed that it was his idea to put chopsticks in his nose like Luffy does in the manga.
There's this thing where like I put chopsticks inside my nose. I saw that in the manga and I was like, we gotta do this in live action. This is gonna be so funny.
And while it may have been a bit dangerous, his pitches didn't stop there.
He said, I did it myself over the weekend, and it's totally safe. We're like, do not stick anything up your nose. We need to be your Luffy. So, of course, the chopsticks he puts up his nose, we cut them in half, so he does not have entire chopsticks up his nose. We do not want to risk our actors having a brain injury. We appreciate his commitment, but we're like, we're going to do this safely.
He texts me all the time while we're on set. One of his texts, I'll hear a chime, look at it, I might be on a meeting, and then by the time I finally get to it, 40 more texts have come in. Him making the pitch, him sending me the picture of the manga, 800 GIFs and memes. He is such a awesome steward for this character. He makes PowerPoints. He comes in with all sorts of things. I'm sure he'll tell you all about it next season.
He knows the manga. He takes it so seriously. And, he'll come up to me and Ian and open his laptop and give us a PowerPoint. We all pull panels. When new directors come on, we give them a visual deck with panels. Kiki would bring us panels as well and say, I think this is a really important. The way Oda frames this, look how small Luffy is, look how big this character is. That's, that spatial relationship is saying something. So, even if it's not about sort of recreating that panel, it's about, let's think about why Oda drew this away. What was he, intent in conveying this piece of visual information? Obviously, we're adapting the season 3 material right now. Those pages printed out all over the office, so anytime anyone wants to check a reference, they could pull up on the computer, or they could literally just walk in the hallway and point to it on the wall. We just want to make sure that visual material is around us at all times, because it is a thing we keep going back to. Anytime we have a question, we're stuck, we're trying to figure a moment out. You go back to the manga and you say, oh, right, it's right there.
He does also this little moment, like when he's singing to Laboon. I mean, he does a little dance. And
yeah.
Like, is that a Nika dance? Is that a specific reference?
I never want Easter eggs to feel like they're alienating an audience who doesn't know the manga. You want to feel like this is a show where everyone's welcome to the party, no matter whether they're a manga reader, anime viewer, or someone who's like, hey, let's check out this show. It's called One Piece. What's it about? I like pirates. That everyone should be able to experience the show and get everything they need from it to feel fulfilled. But it is fun. We can have something like that feels like it's like, if you know, you know.
Speaking of Easter eggs, we wanted to pick the showrunners' brains about how some of these deep cuts even got into the show. Starting with this statue of Loki. Well, Loki before we ever see his face anyway.
It was very fun because while we were filming the Little Garden episodes is when the Albaf arc was starting in the manga. But at the point when we did make the Loki sculpture, we actually hadn't seen Loki's face in the manga yet. So then we were like, do we change the sculpture? We're like, you know what? It's representational and Brogy wouldn't know. So, it is an Easter egg, but we were like, oh man, do we need to change the Easter egg?
During Sanji's fight with Mr. 13, this Den Den Mushi plays some familiar hold music, if you're a fan of the anime.
we knew, look, like obviously We Are was in season 1 and we used We Are at a point in season 2 as well. But did feel like, well, like, this section of the anime has its own theme song. Like, where are we going to put that in? And then like we knew we were going to have this otter fight that was going to be like a single camera lock off with the fight happening in the background while we're seeing the snail. And we wanted to hold music for that. And I was like, well, like, let's get Believe in there. And I was the most fun to talk to our composers. I was sending them like clips of like, let's just like terrible elevator music from like 80s synthy and like be like, do like this. And they would do it. And I was like, it's still too good. Make it dumber. And so what we have is like the dumbest possible rendition of like a really awesome anime theme song.
Anime fans might have also noticed this familiar tune at the very end of the season.
Obviously, like Crocodile has iconic music in the anime.
This will be the greatest and the final operation that Baroque Works carries out.
It seems you're familiar with our boss, or his public identity anyway.
And so I think when you watch our final Crocodile face reveal at the end of the season, I think fans who know the sort of the anime music there will hear a familiar piece teasing the Banana Dial reveal at the end of the season.
One of the bigger alterations made to the show was the addition of this mutant army that comes straight out of Wapple's mouth. And although these monstrosities were never in the manga, they do have their basis in a manga moment. Here's Ian talking about why he included the monster army in the season's big finale.
It wasn't as big as I wanted it to be for a finale. And the answer is always in the manga. And when he fuses Chess and KM into the one entity, I got really into that image. And I remember just thinking we needed 2 fights. We needed something for Zoro and Usopp outside and everyone else inside. And, the monster army was just a fun idea that popped up. The early sketches gave me nightmares. Seeing them in person gave me nightmares. They are hideous. All those guys were just guys in latex, guys in suits. And everyone on our team just wants to cut loose. And it felt like, with Chopper being predominantly CG, they were just itching to get into something big like that. And the monster army is one of my favorite designs of the series.
Another original character added to the show was Miss Thursday, a Baroque Works agent who's never actually seen in the manga. But surprisingly, not only was she an original character designed by Oda himself, she has a connection to a future character we might see in season 3.
So, again, we looked at the manga. In the manga, we see they've captured Mr. 11. It happened off panel. It felt like a chance to actually see Smoker and Tashigi in action. So we're like, well, if we're going to have Mr. 11, we should have his partner. We reached out to Oda. We said, hey, we're thinking of having Miss Thursday in this sequence of Mr. 11. Can you, if you have time, would you draw us how you see Miss Thursday? And I think in our wildest dreams, we never imagined that what he would draw is another baseball-themed assassin who's related to Mr. 4. One day I showed up at work and I heard, Oda replied to our email, and you open, you're like, there's an attachment. And you open, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing an original Oda Baroque Works character for the first time. Things leak, castings leak. I was very proud that like the Miss Thursday casting is one that did not leak, because I was very excited for when the show came out. People were like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's reassuring to know too that like, I guess we'll see Mr. 4 in season 3.
Yeah, I mean that, you're gonna see Mr. 4 in season 3. I guess that's a scoop that you guys have first. I don't think it's a front page headline that, a character from the Alabasta arc appears in the Alabasta arc.
And amongst all the many, many character additions to the show, there was one notable absence: Vivi's sidekick duck, Karoo. Here's Joe explaining why he was cut from season 2 and if we'll see him in season 3.
Here's the thing I will say about Karoo. We wrote Karoo into season 2. Karoo was originally in our first drafts of season 2. At some point in the room, I was like, I will not make the show if we have to cut Karoo, because I love Karoo. And then we did end up having to make the decision to cut Karoo, which was a little bit story reason. It was like, well, it does strain, believability that Vivi would go undercover, bring her Alabasta duck along. Like, it starts to feel like maybe Baroque Works is maybe not the cunning organization they're made out to be. I remember when like the trailers are coming out, people saying, what's that bakery cart we keep seeing? Well, the role of Karoo in Whiskey Peak is played by a bakery cart. Yeah, and we made sure that Vivi would talk about Karoo, so that even though Karoo's not part of this leg of her journey, he's there in spirit. So it was very important when we had that scene of the dinosaur that we gave lip service, so people would know we love Karoo too. Don't worry, he's in Alabasta.
So he's in season 3.
I mean, I think you could, Karoo fans should, get out their popcorn.
This year, our locations are bigger, our sets are bigger, and we're really excited to bring, one of my favorite epic sagas from the manga to life. We've got a new cast, Cole Scola, Sholo. I can't remember who else has been announced, so I have to shut up now. But there's so many incredible, talented people working on this one next season. We're about halfway done now, and with a little luck, we'll be done by the summer.
When we're filming season 3 now, so it's like, in one hand, it's like season 2 is like forever ago for me, and so it's like, all right, people haven't seen it yet, but it's been so amazing to just see everyone here and the entire crew. Everyone puts so much detail into everything, and that's why there are so many Easter eggs. Sometimes they come from us in the script. Sometimes it's our production design team, our set deck team, our costume designers coming to us and saying, hey, we know this is something from the manga. Could we work this in here? Can we put this in here? And we're so happy that everyone here loves the source material so much that they want to put those things in, and that we have fans that actually will catch that and appreciate that work. That's really incredible. Not every show is so lucky to have people watch it that closely and pay attention in that way.
Hey, thanks for watching. I don't usually make videos this long. I'm usually making TikToks and Instagram Reels, but this video was kind of a labor of love for myself and some other One Piece fans on site. Shoutouts to Jay Park, Mitchell Saltzman, Matt Jones. Also shoutouts to my wife, who introduced me to One Piece in the first place. Well, if you made it this far, I'm assuming you thought the video was informational and entertaining. Give it a thumbs up or leave a comment about how much you like my hat. All right, see you in season 3.